People say it's Elon Musk that is breaking Twitter, but I know what it really is. Twitter cannot handle the fact that the Sacramento Kings are a good basketball team. And you know what? It needs to get over it, because Kings Twitter deserves to talk about a good basketball team for longer than a week. Kings have won 5 straight, 8 of their last 10. They defeat the San Antonio Spurs, and we're going to talk about it right here on Locked On Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily Sacramento Kings podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time. Time for another episode of Locked On Kings.
Hello and welcome into Locked On Kings, your podcast hub for Sacramento Kings coverage all regular season and all off-season. My name is Matt George. I have the privilege of being your host here. I'm a Sacramento sports producer and reporter at ABC 10 News. I'm standing on the court here inside the Golden One Center, getting used to standing on the floor, being in this building for victories, getting used to walking outside, looking up and seeing that victory beam shining bright over the downtown commons in all of Sacramento. It's a trend that has caught not just Kings fandom, but really the NBA world by storm right now. A lot of people talking about the beam around the NBA, a brilliant idea, and it also helps that it's been lit 5 times in a row over the last 5 games. Kings are playing excellent basketball right now, and we want to be able to talk about it, Twitter. So you know what? Figure your crap out. Make sure that you're still functioning for at least a little while longer, because damn it, we deserve to be able to use that platform where Kings Twitter has suffered for year after year after year after year. Now that the Kings are good, you don't get to shut down. I'm writing a petition. I'm going to find some way to make Twitter stay alive long enough for the Kings to actually make the playoffs. Let's band together and let's get that done. But in reality, in all seriousness, the Sacramento Kings playing really, really good basketball, but in tonight's game, not so great. They won, which is what matters, but overall, wasn't the most entertaining game, wasn't the most exciting game in the world, but a win is still a win. 5 straight wins is huge for the Sacramento Kings, and I got this stat from Sacktown Baby Giraffe, Tim Maxwell from the Kings Herald on Twitter. He says, now I haven't fact-checked this, but I trust Tim because he's good with numbers and good with this kind of thing, and he has a lot of time on his hands to research this. The Kings have not won 8 out of 10 games in 17 years. Now, even if I don't check that, that sounds extremely believable. In fact, 17 years seems kind of too soon. Kings are on an absolute roll right now, and they're winning in different ways, whether it's putting up 153 points the other night against the Brooklyn Nets, putting up 130 tonight against the San Antonio Spurs in a performance that I thought was kind of lackluster offensively for the Kings. They still dropped 130, beating a very good Cleveland Cavaliers team, winning on the road, beating a Golden State Warriors team. Like, the Kings are doing it in a lot of different ways, and the good news is they have a very beatable opponent to make it 6 straight coming in on Sunday. There's so much to talk about when it comes to this game, but I'm actually going to start with the negative a little bit, because I thought the San Antonio Spurs actually did a really solid job of making... My goodness, something just fell over here in the Golden One Center. I hope everybody's okay. The Spurs are doing a really good job, or actually did a really good job in this game, I thought, of disrupting what the Sacramento Kings were trying to do, and it started with how they handled Domantas Sabonis. We know that Sabonis is really the foundation, the spine, the backbone to how the Sacramento Kings play, especially on the offensive end. They get him on the inside. He's had a lot of success during this win streak of actually scoring around the rim, but we know he creates for so many others around the rim. He is a passing master, and that's the big thing that we have to pay attention to when we look at this box score for Domantas Sabonis, because 16 points on 4 of 5 shooting. I could point to the fact that he only shot 5 times. He still scored 16 points. That's extremely efficient on just 5 shots, but you want Domantas Sabonis shooting more, and I thought the Spurs as a whole did a really good job of offensively not letting Sabonis look for his shots. But the big stat here, the big stat is that Domantas Sabonis only had 1 assist, and it came in the 4th quarter. San Antonio did a really good job not allowing Sabonis to run the Kings offense, not allowing the Kings offense to really to flow from Sabonis like it has over the last few games. And that's one of the major reasons why, with the exception of the first 8 or so minutes of the game and the basically final seconds of the 3rd quarter all the way through the 4th quarter, really the 2nd and 3rd quarters for the most part, Sacramento struggled offensively, and a lot of it had to do with Sabonis being taken out of the game even when he was on the floor. But when that 3rd quarter run started, for Sacramento. It was right at the very end, over the last minute or so. The Kings ended the third quarter on a 7-0 run. The game was tied at 80. It was the second or third time in the third quarter, that the Spurs had tied it up. They never led, never were able to take the lead, but they hung around, and I had that bad feeling like, okay, I wasn't necessarily worried, like the Kings are still the better team. They will create separation. And I felt like the Kings were just one kind of significant run away from really putting the game away, but they couldn't get any kind of rhythm. They couldn't really put the pieces together. And again, I give San Antonio a lot of credit for that. Greg Popovich and the Spurs clearly had a game plan defensively, which was to not let Domantas Sabonis get comfortable. And Sacramento's offense was affected for the most part because of that. They were having a really difficult time during the second and third quarters stringing baskets together. So they weren't able to really create runs, weren't really able to create energy here in this building, and weren't able to really get going and build any kind of separation, which again allowed San Antonio to hang around. But over the final minute or so, the Kings went on a 7-0 run, all 7 points scored by either De'Aaron Fox or Malik Monk. So the two of them are going to get a ton of credit for that. And it just so happens that Fox and Monk were the two leading scorers for the Sacramento Kings. We'll talk about their performance actually in the next segment. Because I honestly believe, and I'm not alone in this as you're going to hear in a little bit, I think the reason why the Kings got that run started in the third quarter, the reason why maybe the Kings didn't actually fall behind in the third quarter, is because of Davion Mitchell. Davion Mitchell did a lot of things very, very right for the Sacramento Kings in that third quarter. He really picked up the defensive pressure. It almost looked like he looked around, realized the Spurs were hanging around, realized the Kings were much better than a very short-handed Spurs team, and said, you know what, enough's enough. We're not doing this anymore. We know we're better than this team. We can handle this team. This team is scoring way too many points on us way too easily. You know what? I'm not letting this happen anymore. My guy, at the very least, is not scoring. Davion Mitchell flipped into off-night mode, and the Sacramento Kings responded. It didn't result in offense right away for the Kings, but when he picks up that defensive pressure, as a team, you're almost forced to match what he's doing, or it inspires you. Because if he's playing that hard defensively and you're not, you're going to be exposed really quickly, or you're going to look pretty bad next to your point guard who's putting that kind of effort in defensively. Davion Mitchell, I thought, changed the momentum for the Sacramento Kings when they weren't able to build any. Then Fox got scoring a little bit, found Malik Monk in the corner here for a three right at the end of the quarter to really fire up the Kings crowd, and that run carried into the fourth quarter where Sacramento dropped, I think, 41 points in that quarter and really put this game away, and they did so really quickly. It's amazing how quick Sacramento was able to turn things around. And what's great to see is the Kings. I've talked a lot over the years that I've hosted Locked On Kings about teams, really good teams, having that proverbial switch, right? They'll allow you to hang around, and typically the Kings were that koala leech, just kind of hanging on for dear life all game, or maybe having a slight lead. But then those good teams would get to winning time, or we'd get to the fourth quarter and go, okay, enough's enough, flip the switch, they take over the game, they end up winning. We've seen the Kings on the wrong side of that a ton over the last 16 seasons. Tonight, they were the team that flipped the switch and closed this game out. What a welcome sight that is. But I'm not alone in my feelings of Davion Mitchell really changing the game. Malik Monk and Mike Brown both spoke about it. I asked them about how big of an impact Mitchell was in that third quarter to really help create this Kings win, and they were not afraid to give him the credit. Malik, building off of James' question about you and Fox getting going there at the end of the third quarter, it seemed like Davion's defense also really helped create a turning point. Can you speak to just what energy that brings to the team when he's playing like that?
Yeah, for sure, man. I told Davion he started the run. He started everything with the defensive pressure. Then Fox had to pick his defensive pressure up. Then the whole team just rose. So, yeah, I told Davion that he started that.
Mike, you mentioned Davion earlier.
Yeah.
How big and how important was the defensive pressure that he provided? How contagious was that to start that end of third quarter and fourth quarter run?
Huge. I mean, it's, I probably didn't say it enough, without him defensively, I don't know if we get the win tonight. Even though, like I said, Foxy played a great game. We had some other guys step up. Malik had a good game. His defensive pressure energized the entire team. And it gave us enough punch, belief, and so on and so forth that other guys started doing it. And we caused a couple of turnovers because of it. We were able to get out and run and get some good looks. So tonight, if there's a game ball that goes to anybody, it's to Davion because his pressure was much needed.
Today's episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is brought to you by Better help. Now, this is something that's actually really important to me. I used to think that therapy only was meant for people who had really serious trauma or really serious problems. I thought my issues were never important enough for therapy, or maybe there's a negative stigma around therapy where you don't really want to talk about it or open up about yourself. Mental health is extremely important in today's day and age, and truthfully, one of the best decisions that I made in my life was during COVID-19. I started seeing a therapist. My therapist is now my friend. He's a mentor of mine, in very many ways a father figure of mine, because my father was not really in the picture, and he's helped me get stronger mentally, get more confident, handle so many aspects of my life. I cannot give therapy enough credit or not encourage you to try therapy enough. And that's why BetterHelp is so great. Life doesn't come with a user manual. So when it's not working for you, it's normal to feel kind of stuck or in a rut. Navigating any of life's challenges can make you feel unsure, whether it's a career change, a new relationship, or becoming a parent. There is no problem too small, no problem that you shouldn't talk about, especially if it's weighing on you. And therapists are trained to help you figure out the cause of challenging emotions and learn productive coping skills. BetterHelp has connected over 3 million people with licensed therapists. It's convenient and accessible everywhere, 100%. As the world's largest therapy service, BetterHelp has matched 3 million people with professionally licensed and vetted therapists, available 100% online. Plus, it's affordable. You just fill out a brief questionnaire to match with a therapist. If things aren't clicking, you can easily switch at any time. No waiting rooms, no traffic, no endless searching for the right therapist. Learn more and save 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/lockedonnba. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedonnba. Again, Locked On Kings today is brought to you by BetterHelp. Give online therapy a try at betterhelp.com/lockedonnba and get on your way to being your best self. If you weren't watching too closely, you might have missed the Kings' purple and black court turning a little bit Kentucky blue and white. Okay, not really, but the Sacramento Kings got their Kentucky backcourt in a major way tonight. De'Aaron Fox and Malik Monk combined for 54, and with the struggles offensively for the Kings, they needed every bit of it, and it's always good to see those two connect. They have picked up right where they left off 6 years ago with what they were able to do as part of the Wildcats. They're very good together. They're also very good apart. I think Malik Monk has done a fantastic job at times getting to the paint and doing a lot of the things De'Aaron Fox does to get the Kings offense going when Fox isn't in the game. But De'Aaron Fox was excellent in tonight's game for the Sacramento Kings. And what's interesting is we found out after the game, Mike Brown shared with us that the Kings, or rather Brown, challenged De'Aaron this morning at shoot-around and said, look, we're going to need a big game from you. We need a big game from you tonight. And how does De'Aaron Fox respond? A team-high 28 points on an incredibly efficient 11 of 15 shooting. 28 points on 15 shots is fantastic from your star. Also had 8 assists. And here's the big thing. You know how I feel about plus minus. Not exactly the best stat in the world. Sometimes it's an accurate stat, but in this case, it tells the tells the exact story of what this game was like for De'Aaron Fox. Plus 36. That plus minus is too good to ignore. De'Aaron Fox plus 36 in this game. When he was on the floor, great things were happening for the Sacramento Kings. When he was off the floor, the Kings pretty much struggled in this game. De'Aaron was massive for Sacramento's win tonight. He continues to just put up incredible numbers, continues to be so successful. Doesn't always have to be the leading scorer, dominant guy for the Kings to win, but like Mike Brown challenged him, the Kings needed every bit of that De'Aaron Fox tonight. And then Malik Monk, Band-Aid Monk, he can never take that Band-Aid off. His face cut is actually healed, but he told the media after the game, I can't take the Band-Aid off. I have to wear it now. The fans won't let me. And he's damn right, because as long as he continues to wear that Band-Aid and he has this success, you might as well be putting on more Band-Aids, Malik. We might be needing 2 or 3 at this point with how well he is playing and the numbers that he's putting up. He had 26 points in this game, 11 of 19 from the field, also had 4 rebounds. As a whole, the Kings bench, which of course Malik is a part of, they continue to roll. They play very, very well. And they've played very well consistently over this stretch. They had 58 points tonight. They scored over 80 points as a bench in the Kings' win on Tuesday. Very, very solid. The benefit, the plus that the Kings are getting from that second unit, really, it can't be expressed enough how important that is to the success of this team. I actually asked Malik after the game, I asked him if he thinks this Kings bench is one of the best in the league. And he told me he wouldn't say that yet, but to ask him again around the All-Star break. But I tell you, it's hard to find a bench that is playing better than them right now. It's hard to find a bench that's more efficient than them right now. And it's not just Malik Monk. Trey Lyles continues to play really well. He had 14 points, was a plus 10 off the bench. Chimezie Metu, who had 2 monster dunks, including a great alley-oop connection with Davion Mitchell in this game. He had 10 points with a plus 19 in 13 minutes. Plus 19 in 13 minutes. Again, the plus-minus stat, not always the best, but that tells the story of how when Chimezie Metu was in the game, he played well, he brought energy, he played with efficiency, also hit a 3. Like, I've been so impressed with how Chimezie Metu has played and the role that he has carved out for himself with that Sacramento Kings second unit. As long as they continue to succeed, if you're getting 24 combined points from those 2 bigs off the bench, the Sacramento Kings better be winning games. That's all I'm saying. This episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is also brought to you by Sweatblock. This is a product that I'm using right now, and what's great about this is I used Sweatblock antiperspirant wipes 5 days ago. Yeah, 5 days ago I used the wipes and they're still working. They remove those embarrassing sweat stains, they remove those obnoxious odors, and they do so. One wipe handles 7 days for you, and it's an all situation type thing. You can carry it in your bag. You can use it when you're working out. You can use it just when you're dealing with the heat or the sweat of the day. Any kind of sweat issues that you're having, Sweatblock can handle them, and it's extremely easy for you to get a pair or get yourself these Sweatblock wipes. They're totally available for you, whether it's on Amazon.com or you can go on Sweatblock.com right now and order yourself a pair. And when you do, make sure you use our promo code LOCKEDONNBA to get a 20% discount. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONNBA to get a 20% discount of these Sweatblock wipes. Get rid of that odor, get rid of those embarrassing sweat stains, and don't have to worry about it for 7 days with just one wipe. Sweatblock.com/LockedOnNBA to get 20% off. Terrence Davis got the start tonight for the Sacramento Kings in place of Keegan Murray, who is injured. I thought that was the right decision. That is the move that I would have made if I were Mike Brown. I think it's the right move to make, even though Terrence Davis only played, if you round up, 15 minutes. So he didn't play a ton. Kind of struggled when he did play. Didn't look like he was his most efficient, certainly wasn't as good as he was on Tuesday night when he had his 31 points. But remember, those 31 points started with good defense. And while Terrence Davis did score the first bucket of the game for the Kings, defensively, he had some struggles. Offensively, wasn't really getting going. But I also think a large reason why he didn't play as much was because of how well Malik Monk was playing. And Mike has shown a consistent desire or willingness to stick with the hot hand when it's going. He did so with Terrence Davis on Tuesday. Now he did it with Malik Monk tonight. Wanted to get Malik Monk and De'Aaron Fox as much playing time as possible, especially in that second half. So I'm not overreacting too much. I wouldn't panic too much if I was a Terrence Davis fan or if I were Terrence Davis himself about getting the start, but only playing 15 minutes. I think it was just that kind of night for the 2-guard spot with Malik Monk. And Kevin Huerter didn't have the best game either, but still provided at least some quality minutes. This was Malik Monk's game at that 2-guard spot. He pushed both of them pretty much out of the rotation tonight, took that spot for himself. And you know what? The Kings won, and that's all that matters. And I know that's what matters to Terrence Davis, and I know that's what matters to Kevin Huerter. So the Kings have the Detroit Pistons in here on Sunday. The return of Marvin Bagley, which I'm sure many of you are looking forward to for one reason or another. A very winnable game. Detroit, a very beatable team. I would expect the Kings to win that game just like I expected the Kings to win this game tonight. Not saying they should come in with an unearned swagger, not saying they should take Detroit lightly, because Detroit is one of those teams that can run it up on them pretty quickly and catch them napping. It can be a trap game. But Sacramento is playing really, really well right now. Even if they didn't play their best basketball tonight, they're figuring out how to win even when they're not at their best, and that's exciting. Can they make it 6 in a row? That would be huge for this team. 8-6 on the season, going 9-6 to wrap up this homestand before a pretty tough road trip. They have the Memphis Grizzlies and Atlanta Hawks on a back-to-back. Then it's off for Thanksgiving, and then Black Friday, it's against the Boston Celtics, who, last I checked, are at the top of the Eastern Conference. A very tough 3-game road trip, then they return home for a meeting with the Suns. Schedule's not going to get easier. When you have games at home like the Detroit Pistons, those are games you have to get, even if you're over 500 right now. Love the way the Kings are playing. Excited to see how they're able to do on Sunday. But hey, I'm also excited for tomorrow's episode of Locked On Kings, because the G-Man, Gary Gerald, Sacramento Kings radio broadcaster, he will join me on the Locked On Kings podcast to talk about from his spot in the radio broadcast booth what he's noticing from this Kings team this year, what he sees that's different, how sustainable he thinks it is. We'll discuss all of that and more, so please join me on that. For right now, though, from the Golden One Center, I am done. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you to all of you who were at the game tonight, who came out, said hi, introduced yourselves. It means the world to me. Really appreciate you for that. Can't wait to have you join me on the next episode of Locked On Kings. Until then, my name is Matt George. You've been listening to the Locked On Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.